Okay, hello everyone. I'm Paul Mallett, Senior VP and Chief Operating Officer of Postuma Marketing Group. It's nice to have you all with us today. As usual, if you have any questions throughout the presentations, you can type those down in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer those throughout the presentation or afterward. And if we run out of time and we don't get to all the questions, we'll do our best to get back to you afterward. Also as usual, we're recording this today, so if you missed something or you want to go back and just hear it again, you'll certainly have that option. We'll have the recording ready in a day or two, and we'll send the link out to everyone who registered, so thank you very much. 95% of you that are here, at least, should have had a worksheet emailed to you yesterday. If you were a last-minute sign-on, don't fret. We will go back and I will check and see if there are some that did not receive it. I'll see to it that you get those because I believe Sandy will refer to those today. So if you have them, hopefully you have them ready because I think he will refer to them. But if not, I'll get them to you afterward. So let's go ahead and get started. Well, the first quarter of 2015 is in the books, right? So there's no looking back now. What's done is done, or what's not done is not done, of course. And how do things look for you? Are you a quarter of your way to your goals for the year? If you are, well, congratulations. Obviously you're doing something right. But if not, well, maybe it's time to try something different. Maybe it's time to find something or someone to provide the spark you need to get your business back on track. Sandy Schussel is a trusted resource for Postuma Marketing Group when it comes to individual performance coaching. Sandy's a successful business and life coach who specializes in helping insurance and financial professionals double their income and reduce their hours by working with them on 5 simple changes in the way they think about and work in their business. As a practicing attorney, Sandy was the rainmaker for his firm. He left his practice to help teach and coach other professionals to become rainmakers themselves. And most of these folks over the past 15 years have been in our industry. Sandy holds or has held life and health insurance licenses and several FINRA licenses as well, including Series 6, 63, 7, and 24. Sandy is a regular contributor to industry publications, including Producers Web, Life Health Pro. He's on the board of directors of the Financial Leadership Academy and on the faculty of the Insurance Pro Shop. Sandy's also written 2 very highly acclaimed books, one on overcoming fears and one on increasing sales. Now Sandy has done other webinars for us on referral marketing and the success mindset, but today he's going to be talking to us about maintaining focus. And I have to tell you, I'm a huge believer in the power of focus. And based on our attendance today, I'm going to say most of you understand the value of that as well. Before we dig in, there's one more thing that I don't want to forget to mention. As part of our ongoing strategic relationship with Sandy, he's offering all of those in attendance today one free personal coaching conversation with him, something he usually charges $300 for. And let me repeat that, a free personal coaching conversation with Sandy just for being with us today. If you think a deep conversation about your personal situation will help you, I really encourage you to take him up on this offer. If you're not satisfied with the results you're seeing, this is a great opportunity to take one small step to do something about it. Now, enough of that. Okay, it's time to get focused. Sandy, welcome back. The floor is yours.
Well, thanks, Paul. I like that, time to get focused. I appreciate the work that you and the Postuma Marketing Group team do every day, and I'm happy to be part of it. So let's start this session, and maybe the best way to start is make it clear that I'm going to be using the word advisor. And when I do, I'm talking about you, whether you call yourself an agent or producer, a financial advisor, a financial planner, regardless of what stage of your business you're at. Maybe you're working for someone else, or you're solo, or you're developing your own agency, and whether you're licensed for life and health and P&C, or have FINRA licenses or advisory or planning designations. I could and actually might slip and use more than one term, but advisor means you. So I want to start with two questions that I'd like you to give serious thought to, and I'm not going to ask you to respond to them. I'm just going to ask you to think about them. First, when you think about your business, are you where you want to be? And second, if not, what has to happen to get you there? In my 15 years of working with advisors, two issues rise to the top of the list over and over again. And a lot of my individual coaching is around these issues. Getting and keeping great clients is one of them. And that means I don't get enough. I don't get enough good ones. I don't get the kind that can keep me in business. And then they get pulled away from me for various reasons, getting and keeping great clients. And the other is focusing on what it takes to grow your business when you're surrounded by an endless stream of distractions. This second issue involves time and activity management, and it's where we'll be focusing today, speaking of focus. So let's get started. The first thing we need to look at is where you came from. In the 1930s, Napoleon Hill wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. And as a bonus tip, if you have not read that book, it's a little stodgy and it's definitely a little sexist and out of date, but it's one of the best self-help books for advisors that I can think of, Think and Grow Rich. And in that book, he said, what the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. In other words, conceive it, believe it, achieve it. Now, almost all of you on this call did just that as it applies to creating a business in this field. You conceived the idea of becoming a producer or advisor. There I use both words. You believed you could, and you achieved it. But achieving, conceiving, believing, and achieving, becoming an advisor is not the same as conceiving, believing, achieving a specific level of success at it. Now, when Napoleon Hill wrote that book, he studied the most financially successful people of his time: Andrew Carnegie, the richest man in the world; Charles Schwab, the CEO and largest stockholder of Bethlehem Steel; Henry Ford; Thomas Edison; even old Alexander Graham Bell. And what he learned from them is what he referred to as the success formula. And there are four parts to the success formula. First, you need to have a powerful goal. There's a modern author that calls it a big, hairy, audacious goal, BHAG. You need to have something that you're striving for. Secondly is you need a plan to reach the goal. It has to be a plan that you can break down into little pieces of what I'm going to do every day, what I'm going to do every hour, even what I'm going to do every minute. Thirdly, and most importantly, is once you have that plan, you need to be taking intensely focused action on that plan. And fourth, you need persistence. You need to keep doing it until you reach the goal. A perfect example of that was Thomas Edison. Edison wakes up one morning and he says, I think I'm going to create a lamp that uses as its source of power electricity. It was a crazy idea for the time because everybody knew that electricity was dangerous. Electricity, they had these things called arc lamps, and they would light up industrial areas, and when they fell, they set fire to everything. The best you could do with electricity is to generate power for telegraphs. It was just too dangerous to use for what he wanted to do, which was to use it as a source of light. But that was his big, powerful goal, his BHAG. And he knew that you're supposed to have it written down, but the way Edison would write down his goals is he would contact the reporters for the New York newspapers who take the ferry across the Hudson River to Hoboken and come down to his Menlo Park laboratories where he would make his great announcements. And he had done this several times, and he had already invented some, pretty new, exciting things. But when the reporters heard that Edison's idea was to create a light bulb, a lamp powered by electricity, they wrote in the papers the next day that the guy had finally gone crazy, that there was no way, it didn't make any sense. But Edison said, not only am I going to do it, I'm going to do it in 6 weeks, and I'm going to create an infrastructure, underground wires and cables where everything, the whole city could be lit up. And people were almost laughing at him, but that was his goal. Now, once he knew that he had a goal, the next thing was he knew he needed a plan. And he knew that even a simple plan, a stupid plan, would be better than no plan at all. And a lot of us go through our businesses, our practices, without developing a plan. But it was a necessary thing. And his happened to be a really simple, stupid plan. He knew he probably needed some kind of lamp to enclose it in, so he had glass blowers ready to create lamps. He knew he'd be using electricity, so he got one of his education was a formal 4th grade education. He got one of those newfangled electrical engineer people on his staff. He knew he might need some mathematics, so he had mathematicians on his staff. The only thing he didn't know was the most important thing, which is what goes into the lamp to make it light. So his plan was to test materials and combinations of materials to create a lamp that worked. He had no clue what it was going to go into it. So he opened his desk, he opened the laboratory book on his desk. He had his assistant hook up wires to a hand crank generator, and he put something on the desk and he would test it. He put a pencil on the desk and he touched the leads to the end of the pencil, and he wrote in the notebook, pencil, nothing. And then he put the pencil in a bowl of water and he put the leads into the water and he wrote pencil and water bubbles. Then he saw his cat Felix walking along the deck. You don't want to hear about Felix, but one by one he would test materials until he found something that would work. And what he thought would be 6 weeks and a couple of hundred experiments turned into 6 months and a few thousand experiments. And after 5,000 or 6,000 experiments, 8 or 9 months into his study of this daily persistence, you can see this intensely focused action and persistence. He discovered that if you took your fingers and put them on the inside of a kerosene lamp and you pulled up the black stuff and you rolled it in your fingers, it created a hair, a filament. And when he put that on the desk, I mean, this is how desperate he was. When he put that on the desk and put the leads against it, it actually flashed for a minute before it burned. And so now he instructed his assistants to get him vegetation from all over the world so that he could burn it and create these filaments and test them. Somewhere around the 13th month of his work, and more than 10,000 experiments later, it occurred to him that maybe if he took the air out of the lantern and didn't allow the filament to be exposed to the air, it would light. And sure enough, when he touched the leads to the end of the bulb, it lit up and stayed lit. And that was how he created what he wanted. And Hill captured this and said, if you have a goal, you have a plan, you take intensely focused action on the plan and you persist, you can always get what you want. So before we discuss intensely focused action, we want to take a look at what goes into a goal and a plan. If you got the handout, you're going to see that it's basically 3 sections, 2 boxes, and then a long list. The first box is asking you the question, what is your powerful goal for 2015? So I want you to take a few seconds and take a look at that and think about, what do I really want to happen this year? What would be amazing? Something that you don't really believe you can reach, but if you did, that would be great. And it's not that far beyond your reach that it's impossible. And you start with that. Some people talk about SMART goals and you want it to be realistic. No, don't be realistic. Pick a powerful goal, a BHAG for 2015. And if you've got the sheets in front of you, scribble them down. I won't ask you to put them in the chat box, but scribble them down. And by the way, if you have questions, throw them into the chat box. We will get to them. If I miss them, Paul will remind me, I'm sure. Once you know what the goal is for 2015, I want you to answer the second question. And the second question is, if you don't reach it, what will the reasons be? Now, someone says, well, wait a minute, I'm supposed to know why I'm going to fail. And I can tell you from years of experience working with advisors and with people in other fields as well, that when you decide on a goal, you already know what the reasons might be that you're not going to reach it. Maybe I'm going to get lazy. Maybe I'm going to lose focus. Maybe I'm going to get distracted. Maybe fear's going to get in my way. Maybe I'm going to procrastinate. You already know. And there are external things, but most of the time they're internal things. Those are the things that I work with clients on, and that is things that will stop me. Yesterday, I was talking to someone who said, I'd like to be top 10, but I don't think I can do it. Now, by saying I don't think I can do it, she's already told me why she won't, because she doesn't believe she can. And remember, it's conceive, believe, and achieve. Now, the third part of the business plan is actual actions, individual steps you can take. And here's the theory, and it works if you do it. There are 100 possible actions that you can take to reach that goal for 2015. If you were to capture them on a sheet of paper like this, if you were to write them out and then do each one of them, you would for sure reach the goal. So if you want help with this is one of the places where you can reach out to me and use the email address that I'll give you later, sandywillhelp@gmail.com, and say, I would like to talk with you and I want to work on the specific actions because I know what my goal is and I know what stands in the way, but I'm not certain about the actions, and I would love to and be happy to help you with those. So the biggest challenge of these four things that I've gone over, the goal, the plan, the intensely focused action, the persistence, is the intensely focused action. I mean, here's the problem. You want to be focused, but you got prospecting to do, and then you've got to sell, and then you've got to deliver the service, and then you have your own financial considerations, and you have client relations that you want to keep up, and you might have to deal with staff, and you have administrative and compliance issues to deal with. And then you add to that, well, I'm concerned about family time, and what if I get sick, and how about if we want to take a vacation and I don't get a chance to really have a spiritual life, and I'm not taking care of my health. And there's so many distractions that you say, well, how can I take intensely focused action in an environment like that? And so we become distracted. Clients use the word overwhelm a lot. I'm overwhelmed, frustrated, burnt out. And a lot of that has to do with how we're dealing with our day. And for instance, we're trying to keep everything in our heads rather than putting it down somewhere where we can, capturing it somewhere. We're trying to do more each day than is possible. We're doing whatever catches our attention next instead of the thing that we really should be doing. We're working without a clear plan, without priorities. We're trying to focus on an environment where people are interrupting us and emails are interrupting us and phone calls are interrupting us, and there are a million distractions all around us. Some of us work out of home, and you're thinking about, well, right there is the refrigerator, why don't I go there? And if you're working in an office and there are other people and they want to be talking about the ball game, I mean, the constant distractions. And the biggest problem of all is we don't have a system to improve the situation. So this is the way it's going to be forever unless we do something about it. So I want to share with you what I promised, which is 11 tips, 11 ideas. We can call them 11 cookies to help you stay focused. And you don't have to scribble them down if you've got them in front of you, because I'm going to go over them with you one by one. But the important thing is some of them will work for you, some of them won't work for you. Take what will work and start to implement it right away, and you're going to see that something good comes from this. So the first is get 100% committed. Now, if people say, "Well, wait a minute, what do you mean? I am 100% committed." And what my response to that is, a lot of us are suffering from this disease that we can label IDD, which is Intention Deficit Disorder. We think we're 100% committed, but we're really not. And so I want to experiment with you, and I'm going to ask you to respond in the chat if you would, so that I know we're working, together on this. I want you to imagine that you took that big, hairy, audacious goal of yours, and you agreed with me that if you got 20% more than that goal, if you did 20% better than that goal, I was going to give you a bonus of $100,000, free and clear, made out to you personally. How many of you, and just say yes if you would take me up on that offer? Yeah, I see people starting to jump right in. Yeah, sure. I would take you up on that offer. Good, keep going. Tell me. Yeah, I'd take you up on that offer. So here's the question for you. What would you do differently to ensure that you will get that extra 20%? You will get that $100,000. What would you do differently that you're not already planning to do to get to your goal? Now, you don't have to answer that online because the answers could be long. People will say to me, "Oh man, I would be on the phone every minute of every day. I would be setting 14 appointments a week. I'd be setting 20 appointments a week. I would work on Saturdays. I would do all that." That is 100% commitment. Whatever you think is your commitment now isn't at that level, because otherwise you wouldn't have one of those answers. You would say the same thing I'm doing to reach the 20. So, to reach my BHAG, my regular goal, it wouldn't make any difference. And so, clearly, the first thing that you want to be sure of is that you're committed at that level. I will do all those things to reach my goal, because you're going to find out if you don't reach it. So the second thing is you need a simple system to stay focused on the goal. I have a poster, and I'm going to recommend this, that I post at my desk, and it says, "Is what I'm doing now, what I'm doing right now, the best thing I can be doing to reach my goal?" And if the answer is no, the next part of the question is, if not, what is? And what happens is sometime during the day, I'm looking at email and I look up at that sign and it says, "Is what I'm doing right now the best thing I can be doing to reach my goal?" And of course the answer is no. And so I figure out what is, and I do it. And the more times that you do that, if it's 100 times a day, the more you're going to be back on track. Now, I work with a coach who has said, "Look, there is no time management problem. There is no problem when you're 100% committed." And I would like to believe that's true, but I'm 100% committed, and I know that I get distracted. So one of the ways to handle it is to have something like that that just jars you back into doing the thing that's going to be the best thing for you to do for your business. So let's talk about the big issue for people, and that is, well, how I know what the best thing is to do. I mean, there's so many things to do. And one of the cookies that I'd like to leave you with is the idea that you should write down, take, a couple of hours if you have to, find the time, do it on a weekend, write down every single thing that you believe you want to do, everything that you could possibly think of to do. And here's what you're going to find out when you do. First of all, you're going to find out that the list is finite. After 3 or 4 pages, you're not going to be able to think of anything. Maybe tomorrow something will come to mind and you'll add it to the list, but it's not going to be endless. So the people who are feeling overwhelmed and distracted because there's so many things to do, well, there are, and there may be so many things to do, but the reality is, if you write them all down, one is they're written and they're there for you, and the list is finite. And two, now you have them somewhere, so you don't have to worry and agonize, lose sleep over whether you've forgotten something. It's written on your big list. And I like to distinguish between the things on my list that are tasks and the things that are projects. So I've given you the example here that a project is, I had a workshop that I was doing on March 3rd. That meant sometime in February, one task was to prepare the talk. One task was to work on the slides. One task was to talk to the person who was running the program. In this case, her name was Lori, to make sure that everything was in order, and so on. So those are the tasks, and tasks can be separated from the project. The project had to be delivered on March 3rd, but there were a million little jobs that could be spread out before we got to the project. And you want to try to do that with everything you have. Some people call it chunking it down. It's the same idea as testing one material at a time, one combination of materials at a time, over and over again until you find what you want. Tasks are not projects. A project could be taking the dog to the vet, and the task is, well, I got to get the dog in the car and I've got to drive the car over to the vet. And you might just be able to list it as one dog to vet, and that's fine. But when it's a bigger project, think of tasks and write down as many tasks as you can. So now it becomes a question of, what do I do with the task list? So I want to go to something that Stephen Covey memorialized, and it had been around, but it's now something that I like to work with. All those tasks can be divided into 4 types. And if you create this list, go down the list and see if you're going to label it a 1, 2, 3, or 4. 1 is the important and urgent things. These are things that you have to do. You must do them. They're pressing problems. They're time sensitive. And that's one category. The second category to the right is important but not urgent. Now, it's important to plan. It's important to read some of the things in the industry. It's important to take time for yourself. They're important, but they're not urgent. And these are what I like to call the should do's. You should do them, and we're going to talk about what you do with them, but relationship building with clients, pursuing new opportunities, anticipating problems so that if you're prepared for them, they don't happen, and long-term projects. The third box is the things that are urgent but not important. Someone says, well, how can it be urgent and not important? It's in my face. I've got to do something with it. These are the interruptions during the day. Things that you have to do, but if you miss the deadline, it's not going to get you in trouble. There's not a real problem in missing the deadline. Some mail, some reports, sometimes meetings I really want to attend, but if I don't, it's not life or death. And finally, in the fourth category, and that's the one I want to talk about first, is the things that are not urgent and not important. And basically, these are things that you might want to do, but you never have to do. The trivia, the busy work. I know, for instance, that I've had on my list forever that I want to learn Spanish and I want to get some guitar lessons to play the guitar better. They're always on my list, but odds are I'm never going to do them. And if I do, they don't have to be on my list. And so if you go through your list and cross those out, take the fours and get rid of them entirely, you're going to find that, hey, I've just shortened my list. And yeah, there are things I'd like to do, but they're not important for me to be considering right now. So next we go to the things that are important but not urgent. These are things like planning and long-term projects. And what I recommend with anything that falls into that category is calendar it. Set aside a time every day or every week rather for doing that reading you want to do, studying for that next designation you want to get, planning your business, planning your prospecting. Those are things that are important to do, but they're not urgent. And the key word there is calendar. For the not urgent, not important, the key word is don't do them. And those are three key words, actually. But for this one, the key word is calendar. Take care of them that way. So let's look at the third category, urgent and not important. These are the ones where if you miss a deadline, nothing's going to happen. There's no real consequence. And the key word for that one is delegate. We're going to talk about delegation because I think it's an important tip for you to carry. Delegate those. Give those to somebody else to do because most of the time somebody else can do them. And finally, the important and urgent ones are things basically you have to do. You can't delegate them. They're due now. I've got to get them taken care of. And what you want to do with these is to prioritize them as well. And one of the best ways that I can think of to tell you how to prioritize them comes from a situation that also happened in the early 1900s. Charles Schwab, the CEO of Bethlehem Steel, was having a terrible year because he was just so stressed and he wasn't getting anything done. And just like many of us, he had thousands of projects and no time to do them. And he did something that was very unusual for the time, actually it had never been done before, is he approached a man named Ivy Lee, who later on became a great PR guy, but at that time was this newfangled thing called a consultant. And he said, Mr. Lee, I could use your help. Would you look at what I need to do and tell me the best way to do it? And Ivy Lee watched him, it's a funny name, but Ivy Lee watched him for an entire day. And at the end of the day, he said, Mr. Schwab, I have a solution for you. And I am willing to allow you to pay me anything you want if you promise that you will stick to the solution for 30 days. And of course, Schwab said, anything I want? Yeah, okay, great. And this is what Ivy Lee told him. He said, I want you to write down every night the 6 most important things that you have to do the next day. And then I want you to prioritize them, which is the most important, which is the second, which is the third, and so on. And Schwab said, well, yeah, sure, I can do that. He said, but here's what I want you to do about them. When you come in tomorrow morning, I want you to work only on number 1. And I want you to take number 1 as far as you can take it, either finish it or as far as you can take it without the input of somebody else before you touch number 2. And Schwab said, that's crazy. I won't get anything done. And he said, well, you're not getting anything done now. Are you in or out? And Schwab agreed to be in. At the end of 30 days, he presented Ivy Lee with a check for $25,000, which in our time is $500,000. And he said, I got more done this month than I've been able to get done in the last 2 years, in any month in the last 2 years. And I want to thank you for it. So the concept of prioritizing is this: pick out the most important things, uh, prioritize them. This is number one. I got to take care of this for this client. This is number two. I've got to make sure I make this phone call. This is number three, four, five, six. And do not touch, when you get to them the next day, do not touch number two until you're working on number one. Now, it may be that the next day, what used to be number three is now number five, and there's a new number three or a new number one, but that's why you do it daily. And if you do this for the next month, you're going to really change your focus entirely, and you're going to be much more intensely focused on the things that need to be done. So that was the third tip, which is about prioritizing. Let's talk about the fourth one. One of our problems is we say yes to everybody. And you can admit it right now. How many of you have that problem? Say yes if you do. I say yes to too many things. Yeah, there you go. I say yes to too many things. Sure. Warren Buffett said the difference between a successful person and a very successful person is that the very successful person says no to almost everything. We're so afraid of disappointing a client, disappointing an associate, disappointing someone, that we don't say no when we need to say no. So if I could give you any important cookie here, it's say no whenever you can. And the more you say no so that you can focus on what's really important to you, the better off you're going to be and the more focused you're going to be. So the next tip that I can give you is to schedule everything. In your packet, if you've got the packet, the fourth page is a blank schedule. Make lots of copies of that and start to schedule everything. And, people say, well, but I'm not that structured. I can't be that scheduled. So let me give you a sense of what I mean. I've listed some things here: family, the 6 most important appointments with yourself, etc. Let me give you an idea just by walking through it a little bit with you. So you have this blank timesheet. And this is going to be your master schedule. It doesn't mean it's etched in stone that you can never vary anything. Your life happens and you have to change it. But the first thing that I would do on a schedule like this is to mark out the times that I don't want to work. I would actually mark out, box out, put in what I want. So in the example that's on the screen, every morning I'm out working until a certain time of the day. And what I might be doing is going to the gym, running, doing something that I want to do, doing some reading, doing something that I want during that time of day. I also don't want to work Friday afternoon, so that's marked out of the schedule. I don't want to work Saturdays or Sundays, so that's marked out of the schedule. And after a certain hour of night, I don't want to work. The white space is what's left for me to do my work in. The next thing that I might mark down is anything that's mandatory. If I have a meeting with, an office meeting for the people in my agency, and it's always the same time, I'm going to put that in. If there's a therapist that I have to go to and it's the same time every week, I'm going to put that in. That's going to be in my schedule, things like that. Now, follow this next one really carefully. Most of us have appointments where the appointment is dictated to us by the client. The client says, I can see you at 7 o'clock, and we make the appointment at 7 o'clock, even though it's on the opposite side of the county from the appointment that we have at 4 o'clock. If they're coming to your office, great, but if you're going to see them, that's worse. What we need to do is to decide how many appointments that we want to keep in a week. And in this case, I have somebody who's keeping 10. Yours could be 20, or it can be 4. And when those appointments are. If you think about this, if you think about a doctor or a dentist, You call up and the receptionist says, well, I have a 2 o'clock and a 4 o'clock, and you say, I want 3 o'clock. They're not going to give it to you. And yet, agents, producers, advisors, I used all 3 words this time, will invariably bend their schedules and then miss out on their schedule, on being able to maximize their appointments. And what I've also done here is I've numbered the appointment blocks. I've allowed 2 hours for them. Yours may not be 2 hours. If there's travel, that might be included. But I've blocked out those 10 appointments, and they're in my schedule. Somebody wants one of those days, that's what I give them. So now I added to it the green section, and in the green section, these would be the times that I've set aside as appointments for me. These are appointments for me. This is where I get the chance to do that quadrant 2 work, the planning, the thinking, the reading, the studying, whatever it is that I want to do. Put that in your schedule. Have that in your schedule. And this whole concept of family time and time with clients is something that I learned a long time ago, back in the days when I was an attorney and I was in court with a child psychologist who I knew testified in court, did clinic hours, had his own office hours, had some other hours that he worked, and somehow while we were sitting there waiting and talking, he also told me he had 5 children. And I said to him, you're a child psychologist. Don't you think having time with your children is important? I know what your schedule is like. And he said, well, yes, it is, but I don't worry about it because I make a 2-hour appointment with my children a couple of times a week. And I treat that as just as sacred to me as an appointment with a patient. And I never miss that appointment. And while I'd like to give them more time, they know that that time is theirs. So that applies to what we're doing here, is fill in the time so that you can control the way that your work flows. If you look at this schedule now, I have white space. It's still there. Now, if you find that when you put in your family time and your non-work time, it covers the whole page, you're probably in the wrong business. But if you look at this schedule where the imaginary person that we're doing this for is pretty busy, you can see that now I've got white spaces to do prospecting. I've got space to do paperwork, to do administrative stuff, to do phone calls, to do prep, to have some lunches, to review emails and messages. And you can schedule this as detailed as you want to. The other thing that you have to promise yourself is if any of those yellow spaces, if any of the spaces that you reserve for clients aren't actually filled with clients, then you're going to use them as well for the time to do these other things, for the time to do the administrative things and to do the reviewing of things and to do research and to do planning. And you can actually block those all into the white spaces and remove the white completely, but you'll be able to run a practice by minimizing distractions. You know when things have to be done. And we're going to talk about interruptions, but before we do, I want to spend a minute or two on inflows, the paper that comes in, the mail that comes in, the emails that come in, the phone calls that come in. On that calendar, you can block in time for phone calls. Most of us pick up the phone whenever it rings. Oh my gosh, we'll lose a client if we don't pick up the phone. That's just nonsense. If you really do this right, you'll have a couple of times in the morning, a couple of times in the afternoon where you listen to messages, return phone calls, or you're available to pick up calls as they come in. And that's one way to stop being distracted by them. The same thing, we get the little bell on our email telling us that there's new email, and we stop what we're doing to go look at the email, and of course, we lose what we're doing, so now it takes us extra time to get back and fix it. And that's just not a good way to run a business. You're allowing the distractions instead of doing something about them. Now, when paper comes in, when mail comes in, there are only a few things you can do about it. You can put it in a folder to read later, which is a great thing if you're not on your reading time. You can act on it right away because it needs to be acted on, or you can put it in a folder that says act, and act on it when you're in a time slot for taking action. You can put it in a folder for file and to file and have somebody file it. You can put it in a folder to delegate and make sure you delegate it. And you can go and put it in a folder to shred. Now, you don't actually have to physically use folders, but the idea is if there's something coming into your office, you need to take an action on it. The action doesn't have to be now, but you can separate them out to take separate action on each thing. And by the way, you can do the same thing with email. An email comes in, it can go into read later folder. It can, and you can even set these up automatically. It can be left on your desktop, on your inbox to act on immediately. It can be put in a folder to deal with later, to file. It can require you to shoot an email over to whoever you're going to delegate it to, and then it's there, or it can be trashed. And when you're in a time block where you're working on emails, that's what you do. Take care of them, move them into those folders, or act on them right away and get rid of them. And it's going to help you a lot. And there again is where you need to say no to things. You need to get out of subscriptions that you don't really want or don't really need. You need to get off anybody's list that you can. And there are programs that you can, apps that you can download that help you just organize that. If anybody wants advice on those specifically, email me at sandywillhelp@gmail.com, and I'll send you at least one that I like to use. But get yourself in a position where you have fewer distractions, which leads us to interruptions. Now, you need a system for interruptions. And my rule is if it's not life or death, something needs to be done with it. You shouldn't be interrupted at all. If you do get interrupted, there are three things that you can do about it. One is to stop and handle the situation. Two is to immediately send them to somebody else to delegate, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Three is to defer it to a later time. Come back with that at 3 o'clock, and I'll deal with it. One of the offices I worked with, a manager that I worked with, had what he called Anthony time. He was not available to anyone in the office until a certain time, and they could line up and sign up for his help and come first serve at Anthony time. But until Anthony time, he did not allow interruptions. And as I say, the exception is life or death. Somebody's bleeding, a regulator's at the door, a client's asking to walk away with his file, something like that where you have to address it right away. Otherwise, don't allow interruptions. It will help you reach your goal. And of course, one of the things I mentioned is delegating. So let's talk about delegation, because people say, oh, I can't delegate this. I feel guilty asking them to do more. And the fact is, whoever it is, want to take ownership just like you did when you started out. Or I'm the only one who can do this. Nobody can do it as well. And the fact is, somebody else can do them maybe even better than you can. Or it's easier for me to do than to train someone else. And I hear that all the time. But the truth is, if you spend the time on the front training, then you get somebody who can repeatedly do it for you. And another one is it only takes a minute, so it's not worth giving it to someone else. And the fact of the matter is 15 minutes a day, if it only takes a minute work, adds up to a full 1.5 weeks per year that you did work you didn't have to do. And it's foolish for you to do $15 an hour work when you can be taking that time and turning it into $200 or more work. These are just excuses. And the second that you get that, you're going to find less distraction, more time for work, more focus on your work. But a lot of us have trouble delegating, and so we need to talk about the difference between delegating and dumping. I worked with someone who said, I gave this to my associate, and a month later he hadn't done it yet, and I almost lost the client over it. And I said, that's not his fault, it's yours. Because when you delegate something, you have to tell them what it is that you want done. You have to tell them when and how and what the reporting requirements are on the progress. You have to tell them what outcome you want. You have to tell them when you want that outcome. So you want to be caring and respectful, but not guilty for giving it to them. And you want to give them everything they need, the training, the tools, whatever they need to make it happen. You want to give them some latitude on how the job is to be completed. You give it to someone really lazy in their office and he'll find a much easier way than you had. And you want to expect the best from them. And the odds are really good if you do that detail when you give somebody something to do. You're going to get it back the way you want it. So let's do another one. Number 9, under promise and over deliver. Most of us do this backwards. We don't want to disappoint the client up front. So the client asks for something by Monday, and we know that there's just no way we're going to get it to them by Monday, but we don't want to disappoint them. So we say, okay, we'll get it to you by Monday. And Monday afternoon, we look at it, realize there's no way, and now we call the client and say, I'm going to have to give it to you tomorrow. And they get it on Tuesday, and they're disappointed them. And that's backwards. Because if you disappointed them up front, I want it by Monday, and you told them, the earliest I can get this to you is by Wednesday. And they say, oh, Wednesday, oh, man, oh. And then you deliver it to them on Tuesday, same day. Now you're a hero because you got it to them a day early. And you need to learn this and practice this in everything you do. There's an auto mechanic I like to take our cars to, who, when he gives me the estimate for the job, he says, oh, this is going to be $300. And I'm disappointed. It sounds like a lot of money. And then when I get the bill, it's $250. And I feel like, wow, this was great. Now, it was probably going to be $250 all along. But if he had told me 200 and made it 250, I'd be mad. So under promise and over deliver. So tip 10 is leverage everything you've got. Have a business plan. Work on systems. If you don't have good systems, client relation systems, referral system, if you don't have those things, get help with those. Get a coach, get somebody to help you with it. Make sure you have the tools to do things. Some people are still using these slow, out-of-date computers, and they don't want to spend the money on a new one. Have the tools. Get a coach if it makes sense for you. Do networking, because networking is where you're going to find clients or people that work with clients that you can tap into. Develop a team so that you're not doing everything yourself. You're not doing the $15 an hour work yourself. Take on a mentor if there's somebody who really knows what he's doing. I coach a lot of people who also have mentors. They're two different things. Get a mentor. It's okay. Develop your client relationship so your clients want to give you referrals. It's something that I work with people on, and it changes their careers. And then whatever your BHAG is, your $1 million dream is, you can have it if you put all of that together. So let's talk about getting help, because I mentioned it in a couple of ways, getting assistance, getting associates, having a mentor, getting a coach. A lot of us talk about how we can't afford it. I can't afford to hire an assistant. I can't afford to get a coach. And, you know, in any business, and just imagine for a minute, somebody opening up a little grocery store and he checks the stuff in when it gets shipped in, and then he puts all the cans on the shelves and all the cartons on the shelves, and then he runs up to the lotto machine and he takes care of that, and then he's stocking the shelves, and then he's helping customers, and then he's back at the register. You need to invest in help so that that's not you, because you can make a lot of money being an advisor, being a producer, but not if you're not getting support. And so you want a tip? If you're not investing in that because you're holding off until you have money, that's a terrible cyclical argument. You can't start making money until you invest in that. And you've got to get past that vicious circle. Which leads me to, hey, let me help. You know, you've got the opportunity to talk with me. It's something that I do with Postema Marketing Group. Take advantage of it. All you have to do is send me an email to sandywillhelp@gmail.com. And if you're not good at email, call me at the phone number listed here. And I'm happy to set up a time to talk with you to help you. And as far as the tips go, I think we got it all. Now, you could have done questions all along. If there's a way, Paul, you can hop in here. Is there a way to unmute somebody if they want to ask a question, or they could certainly throw it into the chat box? If you have a question, even if you have a comment like, hey, this was good, or hey, this sucked, it's okay. Tell me something so that you know, I know that we gave you what you needed.
Well, while they're thinking about that, because typing it in down below is probably the easiest thing to do, although I can unmute people individually, but I need to know they have a question. But while they're coming up with questions, if there are, I just want to say, first of all, you've given me so much to think about. I'm one of these people as well that have the crazy schedule and so much to do, and I'm sitting here frantically writing things down and reminding myself I could go back and watch this recording again. But you've given me so many ideas. It's fantastic. But I did want to ask you if there was one of these tips, if there was one of these tactical suggestions that you've given that you would put above the others, or if I said you could only give me one tip, which one do you think that would be? What's the most powerful one on its own?
I love that question. And my answer would be the reminder that you use every day, that to ask the question, is what I'm doing now the best thing I could be doing to reach my goal?
Yeah.
If not, what is? It's refocused me hundreds of times, and it's just a question of putting it somewhere, making it big and bold and loud. Mine has a big stop sign on it, and I'll share that with anybody who wants it. Big and bold and loud, because that really says everything. I know what needs to be done. I know what my goals are. And it's a question of, hey, right now I'm fiddling with my computer. Is this the best thing I can be doing to reach my goal?
Yeah, yep, that makes a lot of sense. I really liked your question, your $100,000 question too. I mean, when you think about it, you know, hey, you feel like, or I feel like I can't get all these things done, but what if somebody was going to give me $100,000 to get this completed? Would I find a way? You bet. Now,
Yeah.
what would I do differently? And let's do that. I think that's fantastic. Fantastic. Lots of really good comments showing up here from the group, so thank you very much and appreciate that for sure. I'm glad you guys saw the value. And I want to say one more thing too. I'm going to flash up our number here too. Of course, you can contact Sandy for your 1 hour conversation with him, but I want to remind you, because Sandy talked a lot about delegation, talked about, you know, ways to look to others for help, and I know, I can see the names. I know many of the folks on here today are our agents and work with us regularly. So I just want to remind you folks, don't forget we're here. We're here to help you take some of the burden off of you as well, especially with things like case design and product details and stuff. Let us take care of that for you. I know there are a number of you on this call or on this webinar today that are really not doing that, and I admire you're wanting to do a lot of that yourself, but please use the resources you have available to you. We're here to do that kind of stuff for you every day, so we can help take some of that burden off of you as well. So please don't forget that.
That's so important, and I should have included you in that slide, because I know the help you've given some of the people that I work with.
Yeah. Michael's asking if you put up the slides while we could take pictures with our cell phone cameras. What? I don't understand, Michael. What exactly are you saying?
Michael, you want the slides? The easy answer for you is contact me. I'll send you the slides.
And again, you will get a recording. I'll send a link to everybody with the recording so you can watch back through this again at your convenience, anytime and as many times as you like as well.
Great. So thank you all. And Paul, thank you for letting me spend this time. You picked maybe my second favorite subject. And because it's so pervasive, and the one thing I didn't talk about was perseverance. If there were more time, there's a great story that goes with that. But it's just the big one is, I know what I want to do, I just can't get to it, and that's just a bunch of excuses based on not having a system to get to it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I want to thank you for helping and for sharing this stuff with us today, but I also want to take time to thank you for extending the free offer to our attendees as well. Sometimes it's kind of hard to see the areas that we need to improve in when we're in the heat of battle. The eternal busyness of life kind of gets in the way sometimes, so the value of just stepping back and having someone to provide you with a little unbiased feedback or just somebody to bounce things off of can make a huge difference. So to offer that, I think a lot of the folks who are on this call, you really need to think about taking advantage of that offer. And I know how Sandy works. It's a no strings attached thing. There's not going to be a lot of pressure on you. Just call and talk to them and find out. It'll really be valuable to you. It'll be well worth your time. So I highly recommend you guys do that. Any final words, Sandy, before we sign off?
Just, no matter what you decide, I wish you all the best. Be clear on what you want, and don't let anything get in the way of you having it. Super.
Well, to everybody, for more information on Sandy, his books, today's special offer, any of the things, any way that we can help take some of the burden off of you and free up some of your time, please. You have Sandy's contact information, and you can give us a call here at 877-512-9287 or visit our website, pmg1.com. Just fill out the contact form and just say, hey, I saw the webinar, I wanted to talk or want to find out more about Sandy and what we can do. So again, 877-512-9287. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. And remember, at Postema Marketing Group, your business is our business. See you in the field, everybody.